Welcome into Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts with CPA and personal financial specialist, Phil Putney. Now let's get rolling with today's show. Welcome into another edition of Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts. And Phil, this week we're going to talk about protecting the things you care about most here on the podcast. And, you know, it's important to, as we're into May already, by the way, dude, crazy, right?
I know, yeah.
Just moving along, you know, so it's kind of like a, I don't know, Memorial Day reminder, if you will, like Memorial Day's, you know, coming. It's kind of the kickoff to summer and
yeah.
You know, so we kind of start thinking about, especially when you get to 50 plus, you kind of start thinking about, you know, all right, maybe I need to get my ducks in a row a little bit. And, you know, life insurance is one of those ones that nobody cares to think about it until you need it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's one of those things from your standpoint. It's like, do I really need it? Do I want it? And it's not for you, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
It's for those that are left behind. So
exactly,
it can be critical.
Absolutely. So let's talk about that a little bit this week on the show. You know, and to your point, like life insurance, like we think about it, especially, you know, a lot of our demographic is 50 plus.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you think about needing it when you're in your late 20s, early 30s and 40s, when you start your
The kids are
family.
at school,
Right.
Like that, the mortgage on the house, all the, you know, the traditional reasons, so to speak, you might have life insurance. But
you get over 50, and to your point, and you certainly get over 60, you start thinking, do I even need this anymore?
Right.
So let's just kind of start with some basic life insurance things. What's your thoughts there?
Yeah. And I mean, that's a lot of times the approach that many people have as they enter retirement. It's like, oh, that's a younger person's game, so to speak. I don't need it. I'm beyond those. My kids are graduated. You know, the mortgage is almost paid off. Work replacement. I mean, you're near the end of your work career anyway, so you're not trying to replace income that would be lost if you were to pass away premature.
Right.
So a lot of the traditional reasons aren't there, but at the end of the day, you still have to run the math and see what happens if something happens to you. Because for married couples, things do change for that surviving spouse. There is going to be a loss of income for the household, and that's going to be at a minimum from Social Security. So when a married couple, when either spouse passes, the lowest of the benefits out of the two goes away. The surviving spouse retains the highest benefit. You know, so there's going to be at a minimum a loss of that lowest Social Security benefit. And if both couples have been, you know, had a working career relatively similar in earning history, they may have very similar benefits. I mean, that could be a loss of up to like 50% of your income. I mean, that's a big hit. The other thing is that from a tax standpoint, you go from married, filing joint to single.
Yeah.
So
and that catches everybody off guard.
It does. I mean, it's what they refer to as the widow's penalty.
Right.
And unfortunately, the reality is that a surviving spouse with less income can get pushed into a higher tax bracket than what they were as a married couple.
Okay.
So there's just all these factors that come into play. So you can't just use the traditional assumptions of, you know, X amount of earnings and, you know, paying off the mortgage, all the different things you would traditionally think of for how much or do I need life insurance. You really just have to run the math to say, okay, what happens if something happened to me or the spouse? And usually it doesn't matter much who it is,
right?
Unless there's a pension. I mean, that's the other thing that could change if either spouse has a pension.
Yeah,
depends on the pension election that was made. But in that case, then there could be some loss of income there too. So you really have to run that scenario to say, okay, what happens if? And we do this in our planning scenario. It's our stress testing, so to speak, at the end of it, to say, well, what happens if something happens to the taxpayer today? 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road, and to do the same for the spouse, just to run the numbers to see what that potentially would look like.
Because, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still a protection product, or at least it should be, right?
It's still primarily a protection product, right?
And unfortunately, it's gotten convoluted through the last couple of years of people looking at it as an investment product as well, right?
And I mean, there's some components of that could be there.
Yeah. But should we be focused as a protection first?
Generally, yeah. I mean, my approach is using it more as the protection first. I mean, if there is a need for life insurance, then oftentimes we can take that need because we're going to have to use the byproduct, so to speak, of the investment, using it as more of an investment vehicle. The byproduct is life insurance because it is at the core life insurance. I mean, if you need life insurance, well, then the investment side of it might make even more sense.
Yeah, gotcha.
So
Okay.
it kind of balances out.
The Tax Smart Retiree is your comprehensive guide to mastering tax efficiency for a flourishing retirement. You will find indispensable advice and actionable strategies designed to enhance tax savings, maximize Social Security benefits, protect against market volatility, and develop a customized retirement plan. To get your free ebook, click the link in the show notes of today's episode and download your copy of the Tax Smart Retiree right now.
Well, and so if you've got the product and you're going to have these pieces in place, there's some things you want to make sure you're checking off as well, right?
Correct.
So the simple stuff, right? Simple details, enormous consequence is just the beneficiary. And that really applies to any of your financial products or items in general, right? Whether it's your 401 or whatever. It's like,
correct.
Do you have these pieces set up? And it's a dumb little detail that can really jack things up.
Right. So, I mean, exactly. I mean, it's one of those pieces that in that protection arena, you've got to make sure, like with life insurance or with your retirement accounts, IRAs, 401ks, Roth IRAs, annuities, all those types of benefits you have or assets you have, they pass by beneficiary. So it doesn't matter if you have a will or a trust set up and it says that the money goes to a spouse or the kids or whoever.
Right.
If you're from a previous marriage, let's say you had, and the prior spouse is still the beneficiary at the 401k, you forgot to change it. I mean, there's many, many court cases out there on that the court says, sorry, the beneficiary designation overrules everything.
Yeah, that's true.
So it doesn't matter what your intentions were today. If those intentions didn't get put in place to change the beneficiaries, ultimately that beneficiary designation governs. So, I mean, that is a key factor to look at every year just to make sure that the beneficiaries are correct and that the company, the custodians, have it correct, because oftentimes custodians, they go through software changes and updates and whatever the case is. And, you've made the election, but they don't have it on file now.
And it doesn't happen much anymore, but there's crazy stories out there about companies that have been around a long time that everything was paper. A long time ago, they switched to computer. It didn't get keyed in right.
Yep.
You didn't think about it because you filled it out, 40 years ago, or whatever. And then come to find, I've seen some interesting wild stories where, somebody had listed their girlfriend at the time 50 years ago or 40 years ago, and then never changed it and didn't think about it. Right. So again, just make sure you're updating that stuff. And really in the document arena, Phil, like, insurance is when you're thinking about it, you're implying it, you're going through those steps with a financial professional. It's a good idea to talk about all the pieces, the estate side as well, like getting those documents in place. Like, I recently had a little event happen and it's like, power of attorney and all those things come into play because, you're incapacitated. You need your loved one to maybe handle some things for you.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's the documents rule. Other than obviously beneficiary designations like we mentioned, but beyond that, you have to have certain documents in place. Trust potentially. I mean, it depends.
Sure.
Not everyone needs a trust. Really kind of depends on what your goal is. And again, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not giving legal advice. But at the end of the day, I always tell my clients, I said, a trust is if you don't trust, right? I mean, if you if you don't trust that beneficiary, and it could be good intentions. They just can't handle at this stage of life, especially if they're younger, 25-year-old, you don't want them to all of a sudden inherit your $1 million IRA. Probably not a good scenario, but I mean, if you still want to protect that for other reasons, maybe they're still not able to handle finances and you don't want them to have everything up front. So, I mean, those are scenarios that it could make a lot of sense to have a trust where you have more control.
Well,
but I mean, that's one piece of
That's
it.
just one piece, right? Yeah, you need your medical directive. You need, the power of attorney, and not only to have them, but you also need to let people know where they are. Phil.
Yep, where they are, where to get to them. It's a great idea to have all these different pieces. So your will, it's a direction to probate. A lot of times people think, well, I've got a will, and doesn't it avoid probate? Well, no, that's just a direction to the probate court of what happens.
Yeah,
it's your intention, your wishes. But then beyond that, the durable power of attorney, so that if something were to happen, like your scenario, or you're incapacitated, you can't make financial decisions. If your name's the only one on the account, nothing can happen because you can't you can't act. You can't
Yeah.
perform the deed. So
Yeah.
you've got to appoint somebody. Medical, same thing. You know, if you want to have control or appoint somebody to have control of those for you, otherwise the doctor or the hospital, they're going to do what they feel is in your best interest.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
may or may not follow your wishes. You know, so again, all these different pieces you need to have in place and have them accessible.
Yeah, and they do some funny stuff, you know. I was laughing. I was messing with the doctor. I had this, like I said, I had something happen. I won't go into details, but I get to the second hospital. They transfer me to a second one, and it's now at this point been like an hour and a half. And the guy comes in and he goes, "I think we're going to put a collar around your neck for safety." And I was like, "It's been an hour and a half, dude. I've been on 2 ambulance rides and stuff. I don't really think at this point, whatever's probably happened, right?" And I'm like, "Is this just because you're trying to cover your butt?" And I'm asking him from an insurance standpoint, right? I'm like,
Yeah,
"Look,
yeah.
I get it. The doctor's got insurance things they worry about." So, but it was like, at this point, come on, it doesn't make any sense, right? To do that, right? So
Right.
again, it's just having protections in place, and really that's the point of, again, the main key point of insurance in general. But if protection it's not just the worst case scenario conversation, Phil. It's also like when we think about life insurance, right? We think about the way we've covered it, like early years, it's protection. Later, we've kind of turned it into, there's some investment side of things you could look at.
Mm-hmm.
But also let's look at the piece that I guess the longevity part of it, right? That a lot of people now use it for can you do the 2 of 6 activities of daily living? And
Mm-hmm.
right. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of the end part of the game. And again, a lot of these are pieces that no one likes to talk about, right?
No, it sucks. Yeah.
It's not fun, right?
No.
It's something's happened that you now need whatever this is, life insurance.
Yeah.
The estate documents actually come into play.
Yeah. But we're all aging. I mean, it's a double-edged sword, right? You go,
Right.
I don't want to deal with this stuff. But at the same time you go, but I've also lived long enough to have to deal with this stuff. So
Right.
it's a double-edged sword,
Yeah. The interesting thing is that it doesn't become as relevant until generally something happens in the family. And, like with longevity, a lot of times it's a parent.
Yeah.
You think, I'm not going to, this is going to be fine. I don't need to be concerned with this until maybe you have a parent that is approaching that age and now they're facing the need for long-term care.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, my mom was doing that the other day. She was like, she's like, I really hate being 85, but I'm also really glad because it means I'm still here. And I was
That's right.
like, right. So
yeah, that beats the alternatives.
It beats the alternative, right? But dealing with these different pieces, it's frustrating. So, rising healthcare costs. I mean, all those things factor into it. So that longevity piece is important.
Yeah. So the longevity and looking at those end stages of life, what does that look like? Do you want to have more control of where you go for care and what that looks like for you?
Right.
I mean, do you want to put that burden on your spouse or on your kids? I mean, if you don't have the resources available, unfortunately, that's kind of where it's going to fall.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if that's the plan and everyone's on board with it, that's fine. But just have that discussion.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it does, and I've seen it, in our personal scenarios, but also with clients where, I mean, it does add strain and stress to relationships. I mean, especially if it's a spouse. I mean, if you're the one needing care and your spouse is trying to take care of you, oftentimes they're now neglecting their health, maybe doing things they shouldn't be doing because they're needing to lift or move or help you with certain things.
Yeah.
So I mean, it can be damaging to that spouse.
And it's a noble thought.
Scenario.
Yeah,
and
it's
it
a
is
noble thought, but it's so hard to care. Anybody who will talk to anybody who's actually gone through it, and they will tell you it is beyond brutal, right? Mentally, physically, financially, all those pieces. So,
And if it's the kids that are helping out, well, if there's multiple, who's going to take turns and, are they all in town? I mean, it just becomes, everyone wants to do it and help, but it's a burden. People are, they're still working. Maybe they have their own kids or grandkids that they're trying to blend into that equation too. And
right.
So it's just having at least the discussion, if care is needed, how are we going to pay for it? What are the options?
Yeah.
With any of these, that is really the key is don't ignore it. Don't wait till the house is on fire, so to speak, to start talking about insurance because a little late at that point, have that discussion up front, get over the uncomfortableness of it and at least lay out some kind of a plan to know, okay, well, these are the options. And if long-term care isn't an option because it's just too costly in your scenario, that's fine. But have those discussions up front so everyone's on the same page and they're not trying to scramble at the end to figure out, well, what does this look like?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I mean, protection looks different at every stage in life, right? So, and this is another one of those pieces where you want to reach out to a professional to get some help. And there's everybody calls themselves an advisor these days, Phil. There's some people out there that do insurance only. Nothing wrong with that, but just understand that, right? So maybe working with somebody
got one perspective only,
right? Maybe working with somebody who can cover all the gamut and all the pieces, certainly could be a beneficial and worthwhile conversation to have. So, the reasons behind things always are different from person to person, but the end result is the end result. So if you got questions, you need help, as always, reach out to qualified professionals, somebody like Phil, for example, who does work both sides of the coin, if you will. He's a CPA as well as a personal financial specialist. So looking at multiple angles. So if you need help, again, talk with qualified professionals, get some advice, and talk to one or two, right? And find out what's the right fit for you as well. So
the other key with all of this too is that it's not a one time and done, right? A lot of people think, oh, I've got the life insurance, we're good. I've got the, I did the wills and trusts 20 years ago, we're good.
Right.
No, this is you've done it, now you've got to review it on a regular basis. Check the beneficiaries, review your documents as life events happen,
Great point. Yep.
Make sure that everyone's on the same page, all the documents are up to date so that in the event something does happen, a plan's in place, you're prepared. Especially if you get an advisor, that should be part of what they do. We work with our clients on that to, make sure things are in place so that in that event, we've done as much as we can to prepare for it. So
that's a great point. My mom was just asking me not long ago. I always reference her on the show, but she's like, your dad and I made some stuff like 50 years ago. Do you think it's still good? And I'm like, well, considering he's been dead for 30, probably not.
Probably not.
Right.
Because he's probably, you probably named him on a lot of things.
Right. Right.
And,
Yes, that's a great point. So follow that stuff up. If you need help, reach out to Phil. Of course, we got links in the show descriptions down below. Don't forget to hit subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and of course right here on YouTube so you catch new episodes when they come out. And click on one of those links, get some time on Phil's calendar, reach out to him, call the numbers on the screen as well as in the details for the show descriptions, 248-888-7530, or go to philstaxhacks.com. But certainly get some information about your situation and talk with a qualified professional can help you out with this stuff. It's not the funnest and not the sexiest, but it is important. So get her done to go with Larry the Cable Guy, who's from Michigan, by the way, if you didn't know that.
That's right.
Yeah. So we'll see you next time here on Phil's Tax Hacks, buddy. Have a great week. We'll catch you later here on the program.
Phil? Investment advisory services offered through AFS Wealth Management. The content of this program is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. Investments and/or investment strategies involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. There is no assurance that any investment strategy will achieve its objectives.